Mullah Nasruddin saved up his dinars so that he could have tailored for himself a fancy shirt. So he went to the tailor, and the tailor measured him up and said, Mullah, come back in a week's time, and God willing, your shirt will be ready. So Mullah counted the days and went back to the tailor, and the tailor said, oh, unforeseen circumstances arose. It's going to take a few more days. Come back in a few more days, and God willing, your shirt will be ready for you. So anxiously, Mullah Nasruddin waited for the days to pass and went back, and the tailor said, very sorry, but there's a few finishing touches that I have to make to the shirt. Will you come back tomorrow, and God willing, it'll be finished for you. So the next day, the mullah went back to the tailor, and before he even opened his mouth, he knew what he was going to say. So with great exasperation, he said, can you tell me when it will be ready if we leave God out of it? And it's surprising the number of those who have come to visit over the years who have made this statement, and the statement is, I feel like I'm back where I started. And even yesterday a beautiful young being came and said the same thing. I feel like I'm back where I started. And it reminded of a story. So let's see what it does for us. And this story has many versions from many different persuasions. And it's a story about an old couple. They were past their middle age even, and they had never had fulfilled their desire to have a child of their own. But one night, after sharing their love together, the wife had a dream. She dreamt that she had conceived of a child, and she was told in her dream that this child would be born with a jewel. But this jewel must be kept with the child always, because this jewel represented its soul. And if this jewel was separated from this being, they would fall into a deep sleep. So it was as her dream told her. 9 months later, she gave birth to a beautiful child, a beautiful girl. Now, at the age of 3 years old, this little being, who they called Kohava, which means star, picked up her mother's flute and was able to play an exquisite sound. And as the time passed, it was found that this little Kohava could play any instrument, the lute, and as it was with the flute, the harp. And not only that, but she taught herself to read. She was a highly intelligent little being. But as she grew into a physically very beautiful young being. Now it so happened that the queen of that place was coming to their town, and the queen invited all the ladies of that place to come and join her in the baths. So Kohava said to her mother, I long to see the queen. Please allow me to go with the other women of our town. And so reluctantly, her mother allowed her to go, but telling her to be careful not to take off the jewel that had been found in her hand and which she had around her neck since the time of her birth. Now, when Kahava went to the baths and she was seen by the people of the town, they were all surprised at her extraordinary beauty, and said and whispered amongst themselves that she was even more beautiful than the queen herself. Now, of course, this came to the ears of the queen, plus the other details about her. So when the queen came to the baths, indeed she saw that Kahava was more beautiful than she, and hearing of her abilities, demanded that she play instruments that the queen ordered to be bought. And Kahava played instruments and made those sounds that brought tears to the eyes of all who were there. Now the queen, hearing and seeing this, said to her servants, "This girl must come with me back to my palace to entertain me." Now, of course, her parents were devastated when she heard this, but they could do nothing but allow their beautiful Kahava to be taken to the palace. But when there, of course, the queen had no intention of having Kahava entertain her. She wanted her out of sight, away from a place that perhaps her son, the prince, might see her and fall in love. The queen wanted her son to marry a princess, not a commoner. So Kahava was put into a dungeon where she was left. But being the beautiful being that she was through and through, those who took care of that place, the guards, made sure that she had food to eat and as much comfort as was allowed in that terrible place. But then one day the queen wanted to find out the state of this being. Has she gone yet? So she went down to the dungeon and was surprised to see Kahava still alive. But entering the darkness of that cell, she noticed a glow, and seeing that this glow was around the neck of Kahava, she said to herself, "I must have that jewel." And she wrenched it from the neck of Kahava, who immediately fell into a deep sleep. Now the queen thought she had died and thought to herself she was well rid of her. So she had the guards take the sleeping Kahava out into the forest to bury her out of sight. But the guards, seeing that Kahava was still breathing, merely sleeping, taking her into the forest, they placed her in a small hut where she slept peacefully. Now we no doubt know some of the rest of the story. The way the son of the queen, the prince, riding one day in the forest, came to this hut and saw this beautiful maiden and immediately fell in love. So after seeing this beautiful creature, he went back to the palace And he said to his mother, the queen, I have met the one who I love. The queen said, is she a princess? The prince said, surely she is a princess. Oh, said the queen, I have a gift that befits a princess. Would you like to give it to her? So the queen gave to her son the glowing gem, which he took to the forest and placed around the neck of the sleeping maiden Kahava. As soon as he did so, she awoke, asking who he was, where he came from. And when he explained that he was a prince of the realm, Kahava recognized that it was his mother who had stolen her gem. So she told the story to the prince, who recognized that his mother had done an evil deed. But he went back to the palace and told his mother that he had met this princess who he was going to wed. So preparations for the marriage were made. On the day of the marriage, the prince brought Kahava back to the palace where the wedding was to take place, but she was covered in 7 veils. As the ceremony was completed, one after the other, the veils were removed, and everyone gasped at the beauty, the extraordinary beauty of this being. But when the queen saw who it was, she thought she was seeing a ghost and ran from the palace, never to be seen again. We know the end of the story. They married and lived happily ever after. Many similar stories are told. But the question that we can ask from this story and the others, what is this gem that in this story represents what is said to be the soul? How does this relate to that sentence that so many say, I feel like I'm back where I started? What does it mean? What is this gem? For us, said to be the soul. What happened for us in our life's journey? What brings us to say, I feel like I'm back where I started? What does it really mean? Does it mean that we were stripped of all our garments, that we gathered, our conditioning, our beliefs, to bring us back to a place of what? What is this joy that we must carry with us always? Otherwise, we fall asleep. What is it you found? What is your joy?
Is it presence?
Absolutely, we know that's where it is, isn't it? Because in that presence we're naked. We're not wearing any garbs or cloaks or... Isn't it so? How is it for you? What is it that is there in this presence? This glowing jewel. Presence. The jewel.